A most valuable lesson in chemistry. Each and every one of us in the world want to be loved. We want to find someone to love and be with and grow and evolve with. Finding that undefinable spark with a new partner is sometimes looking for a needle in a haystack. It feels often very times hard and impossible. We don't know how to describe it or how we'll find it, but we're certain in our hearts that somewhere down the line it will come along. And oftentimes it does. But it's important for each and every one of us to look at attraction and understand what personal chemistry can sometimes be. What draws us to one another, and what should we be looking for when we want a relationship that will last the test of time, one that supports you, helps you grow, and makes you happy. When it comes to laws of attraction, chemistry isn't as mysterious or elusive as it may seem, and often it's a lot less magical and mythical than Hollywood and Bollywood presents it to be. The story of your attraction starts very early in life, way, way back in the beginning. As children from an early age, you create blueprints by watching and learning from your family of origin how people interact and how people love, how people fight, and how people struggle. The first people you observe your life and relationships and dynamics from are your parents. You watch, listen, absorb, and model their behaviors, how they eat, laugh, cry, relax, and most importantly, how they relate to one another. The way your parents love each other is the way you learn love to be. The way your parents fight is how you sometimes see conflict resolution to be. We absorb a lot of values about work ethics, religion, values, about people pleasing, putting others ahead of ourselves, anger, sacrifice, caretaking, lack of boundaries, and many other characteristics from your family of origin. When we enter relationships, we many times carry forth these lessons that we have learned from our upbringing through our blueprints. Years and years later, after we've grown up, many times we need to recognize that we're still operating from these blueprints. Consciously, unconsciously, we have a tendency to not even notice in subtle ways that we repeat cycles or values or belief systems that we have learned from our upbringing. And don't get me wrong, sometimes they work for you and they help you, but other times they can keep you stuck, keep you in dynamics that are not healthy, or repeat cycles of abuse, lack of boundaries, and hurtful behaviors in relationships. It's important for us to start looking at chemistry. What's chemistry really about? Chemistry is familiarity. Many times, that's right. It's just familiarity. That new friend or romantic partner that you instantly connect with, that spark you feel, that chemistry we call sometimes just really is you noticing a familiar pattern or behavior or person in front of you. Sometimes that familiarity is a good thing, as it reminds you, once you get to know this person, of your mother or father, and depending on who they were in your life, that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's up to you to figure out. Many times, when we have similar traits to people, we feel more of a familiar pattern and a chemistry with them. It's why so many people say you'll end up marrying somebody like your father or your mother. That saying is because many times we unconsciously repeat patterns. We repeat patterns through familiarity. And so it's important for us as adults to recognize, is this familiar pattern in my life or this person in my life healthy for me or unhealthy? Familiarity can have its upside. If you grew up with good mentors, good role models about relationships, love, commitment, respect, partnership between one another, and companionship, then guess what? You marrying somebody like a parent isn't a bad thing. In fact, it might be something that you're supporting, you're looking forward to, and you want for yourself. Then that's all good. But when relationships come with dynamics where we end up attracting people that repeat painful or flawed blueprints where we repeat negative cycles of attracting people with substance issues, abuse, silent treatments, anger, then it's not a great thing to attract back into your life unconsciously. Many times, what we find irresistible in someone is a trait that is very similar, comfortable, and then we repeat patterns. Breaking negative cycles is possible, but the first step to treatment is always awareness. To break negative cycles, we need to recognize patterns and be aware of the family or the familiar traits that we carry. In our blueprints, we need to look at situations that we don't want to unconsciously recreate and attract or repeat. The more we resist certain people in our life, sometimes they persist and come back over and over and over again. They show up over and over again because you haven't recognized that there's another way to be. The moment we own our traits in our family, recognize and see what is healthy and unhealthy, and instead of trying to fight negative cycles, we enable ourselves to learn how to shift and change. Through awareness, sometimes we can allow ourselves to be comfortable with a healthier dynamic, with a healthier person, or traits that feel more aligned with who you want to be versus who you were raised to be or who you were raised amongst. It's important for us to recognize our vulnerabilities, our tendencies, and our blueprints that sometimes are not always the best thing for us. How do we get chemistry to be compatibility? Well, many times we all carry blueprints of our families, good, bad, and indifferent. But we don't need to be sentenced to repeating cycles over and over that are not healthy for us, like people-pleasing, abuse, control, or being in argumentative, conflict-driven relationships. You can break these maladaptive patterns. Once you take the time to slow down, pause, and reflect, recognize the good traits you grew up with, and recognize the abusive or dysfunctional ones, the maladaptive patterns. You need to acknowledge them. You need to see them. And you need to recognize that I can choose differently, that I can choose to make my relationships more meaningful, positive, uplifting, equal, compatible, instead of repeating dynamics that weren't necessarily the best ones from my upbringing. Many times we need to understand the dynamics of familiarity and see beyond our chemistry to really question, is this chemistry healthy for me? Or is this chemistry a familiar pattern that I'm feeling gravitated towards? In order to seek a compatible partner, it's about you recognizing what is in my highest and best, and try to align with somebody whose values and goals support your vision and aspirations to be a better person and have a better relationship. It is compatibility that stands the test of time and makes you have an exciting and fulfilling relationship. Let's take a mindful moment right now in a minute to breathe and settle into some of the information I'm giving you. Let's reflect on your childhood. Notice where you come from. What are some patterns and values that you do want to hold on to and make sure that the people in your life around you hold? And what are some values or traits and behaviors and patterns and dynamics that you want to ensure that don't continue with the future that you want to bring into your life? Let's take a mindful moment. Take an inhale in and breathe out. Another inhale in and breathe out. Continue to breathe, and in this mindful moment, in this silence, recognize patterns and have insight onto what is healthy in my life and what are patterns that I want to ensure I don't bring in with people, myself, and dynamics in relationships. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. If your mind tends to wander, gently bring it back to your breath and to focus on a little bit of the lesson we're talking about today: compatibility and understanding, chemistry and familiarity. As you gently come back, take a deep breath in and out, and remember some of these main points. An interpersonal chemistry test is as simple as this: acknowledge the good and bad traits you carry from your family blueprints. Acknowledge the good and bad, and also recognize that the bad can be changed. You don't have to repeat cycles. The first step to treatment is awareness. The first step to change is awareness. Ask yourself, what positive traits do you want to share with a new partner? Pay attention to familiar negative feelings like dread, fear, self-doubt as they arise. Recognize warning signs like familiar negative traits, roles, and behaviors. Commit to choosing a partner who supports and aligns with your goals and aspirations. That's very attractive, but always challenge: is chemistry and attractiveness in the beginning a pattern for me that's coming from the past that is familiar? Or is it really something healthy that helps me be a better version of me? Because that's really what's attractive. The love that you know supports your being, is compatible, egalitarian, and doesn't come with repeating unhealthy cycles from your past. Take a moment and always reflect: is this chemistry really chemistry or familiarity? And then once you recognize that, is this familiar pattern healthy for me or something I want to change?